They say small business is the backbone of America. So what's the best way to support a small business? It is to learn more about them and share with your family and friends. We interview founders from across the world who have started and scaled their business through the ups and downs, long hours, and the rewards that come from sacrificing their time to build their business. Welcome to First to Arrive, Last to Leave, the journey of an entrepreneur.
All right, welcome to another episode of First to Arrive, Last to Leave. Today we have a very special guest out of Nashville, another Goldman Sachsers. I don't even know if Goldman Sachsers is a word, but I just made it up. We have Alane Boyd. And Alane, you are insanely impressive. I'm so happy to have you here. She's the CEO and founder of BurgerFit, and a co-founder and president of BGBO, and a president at Arvo. She's a woman in tech. She's, two-time SaaS exit person, published author, top leaders 40 under 40. The list, your list is insane, Alane, and I'm so happy to have you here. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's always nice whenever people read that stuff to you and you're like, yeah, I am pretty accomplished. I'm doing all right.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Because in 5 minutes, you're going to question it all over again. I know.
Exactly.
Like we all do. So Alane, tell us about your journey. And I love to geek out on process. I know that's what your companies do. Like there's just so much here. And where did you begin from the entrepreneur perspective? And then what led you to where you are now?
Yeah, I could spend a long time on this, so cut me off and redirect me as much as you want. But I started, my dad had an insurance agency and I never went into the family business. He sold the company when he was in his 70s and decided to retire. But, we had that entrepreneurial spirit in our house and, started doing a lemonade stand when I was young because I wanted to make my own money. And I really did know throughout life that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dream when people asked me what I wanted to do, I said, I want to be a CEO and I want to wear cute outfits. That was my goal. and I just, when you really kind of look at my background and college and master's degree, you're like, man, you were kind of all over the place. And I really think that that's what life is meant to be. You don't have to have this so specific path. And I think entrepreneurship is the best part of being able to explore things because like you mentioned, processes is what my businesses do. And so I get to be an entrepreneur and focus on the things that I like doing. It doesn't really matter what I'm selling or what I'm doing because I can focus on when I'm doing a good job at it. I can focus on the things I like doing.
Yeah. So how did you get into the tech side of things as you're exploring? Because I always think it's so interesting to say you find this need and this need is going to take a lot to fill. It's not like I can just pop up a website and it's all done and said and done. So how did you get to that tech side and then building your own tech?
Yeah. I will say one of the most valuable things I did was on a whim one day I decided I was going to be an engineer. I wasn't going to be an engineer. I was going to get an engineering degree.
Okay.
Two different things, right? And so I opened up the book of engineering majors. I closed my eyes and just picked one randomly. But I will say out of that, I had to take a software development basics course. And it taught me, it was so basic, but I will tell you that has paid off so much for me. And it really did give me some stepping stones. So things I knew what a P was and why you need parentheses and how to close a syntax, all these little things. And I had a company, I was closing it. I was just kind of tired of that industry and I wanted a fresh start. And I had a friend that worked for another company. And one day I was just telling him, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to close my company and I'm going to start something different. And he's like, well, we're hiring and I think you'd be really good at it. I didn't even know what he did. And I'm like, that sounds great. I'll interview. And so I did. And so the way that it happened is they did hire me and it was a services company. They did social media management for car dealerships. And one day I went to the founder of the company and I said, everybody that works for you sucks and I'm not working with them anymore. We are starting over. If you want me to stay, and I didn't really say it as an ultimatum. I just was like, you have a team of people that are weighing me down, and it's like you're paying them to do nothing all day. And so I'm like, let's fire everybody and let's restart from scratch. Me and you are going to build this. And he said, okay. And at that point, we became co-founders of the company. And I think it works out really well. I don't know, but he taught himself to develop when he was 13 years old. And so I had this very basic tech skill, but I also had the personality to be able to communicate and talk about it, where he would much rather be behind the scenes. And I think most people, when they think about being in tech, they think I've got to be a software developer. There are so many other skills that are needed to be in tech, and being a developer is only this much. You can develop the most amazing software in the world, but if you can't communicate it, if you can't get your target market, you can't get your product market fit, it doesn't matter what those developers are doing over there.
Yeah, 100%. So was that one of your sales? The social media company?
So we did. Yeah. So we built two software platforms and sold them both in 2018. And one of them was for getting car dealerships 5-star reviews from their customers, real reviews from real customers. And the other one was for radio stations. If you think 10 years ago, everybody called in, you call into your radio station to win tickets, and they realized, wow, social media is really taking off and we have no database. We have people calling in. And so we built a contest engine that worked with their social media pages to get email addresses.
That's genius.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So what came next? So you've sold these two businesses and you're like, okay, that challenge is done. I'm going to go into this something different. Did you change? Was it completely different or same thread?
So in 2018, it was the very end of that year. And I know y'all know this feeling, how burnt out you get. I was burnt out 5 years before that. So I was so burnt out, exhausted. So we sold the company. My son was 1, but we had to stay on for 18 months. And that 18 months was the darkest part of my life. I mean, ultra depressed, and it was hard. And, when you sell a company and you are there with somebody else to lead it, they're not always on the same page as you. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of fighting. And so I learned so much from that time together. And so I was 35 and I said, I'm retiring. Like, I don't want to work again. My husband was like, I don't either. Let's just be free birds. and we did that for a little while, but when you're young, especially, your brain doesn't stop.
Yeah.
You still have other problems to solve. And even more than that, as human beings, we want to do things. We are not meant to lay around watching Netflix all day, right? Like, we are meant to be doing things. And so I would say that depression did not leave until I started actually doing things. Like, retirement was not as healthy as I thought it was going to be for me. I did take time off and I did find other hobbies, especially for me, because I'm on the computer all day. Mm-hmm. I needed hobbies outside of computer time. And so I got to explore those, which is Burger Fit was on my back burner for several years as we were exiting our company. And I wanted to explore that. And so I wrote 3 books. It was blowing up faster than
That's not really retirement.
Well, I want to go back to something that you said, because I think
I was retired, but I was just like writing some books. But yeah,
there's this sort of like glorified idea of selling your business. And like you're all of a sudden you're retired and there's all this money, but you just said something about an additional 18 months of time and work that had to go into that. Was that to transition people, or was that to phase you out? Like, I'm just, for people listening, most people, when they think, oh, I sold my business, now I'm on a yacht. That's not the reality of it. Can you go deeper into that?
Yeah, definitely. So we did the structure of our deal, and I will say I would not do it again this way. is we were a smaller business. We weren't 10,000 employees. We were 100 employees. So we were very integrated still in running the company. And I was the one that held our largest contracts. They came to me. I was the head person with BMW and Mercedes and GMC and all of the big names. And so when we sold, we got a large chunk of cash, but the remaining buyout, we got a payment every month for 18 months that we stayed on until the end of the 18 months. And at that point, the idea was, we have transitioned you out. Now, the weird part of it is that when we got purchased, they would have kept us on forever. They would have never said, okay, it's time for you to go. And it was just one day I was so done and I was so miserable. We were in an exec meeting and it was just so much bickering. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually done. I'm quitting. And I gave them 3 months notice. And they ended up not taking me up on that whole time. And that was the first time I felt relief, was that day. And I got my husband and I owned the company. Yeah. He didn't even know that day. I didn't know that day. We were walking in and I was going to quit. And then he put in his notice about 4 weeks later. And so, there are different ways that you can sell a company. And we could have said, no, we're not staying on for 18 months. We will stay on for 3 months and we still get the same buyout. But we get it in 3 months versus 18 months. I learned how to start getting myself out of things faster. And, and I realized too, when you've got big clients like that, you're so scared to lose them. It's Mercedes. They've got other fish to fry. They are their biggest thing is my account still going to be handled? Cool. So things that I thought were big deals at the end of the day were big deals to me. It wasn't reality. So, I would now, if I sell a company, sure, I'll stay on for a few months. Let me make sure you've got a handle on things. And then I don't need to stay.
Yeah.
And really, it's not healthy for any of the environment for the most part. If you're going to have new leadership, having the old owners in there a lot of times doesn't work. It's hard for us to let go. The employees that are coming on board, they worked for the old team. That's the company they worked for. So it's very difficult for them to transition culture wise. So, I don't know if there's anything else that you want me to pinpoint on that scenario, but selling your company can be it's done so many different ways. And I learned that going through that experience, even the number of scenarios we talked about in that one sale, there were so many different ways we could have done it. And now having gone through it, I'm like, wow, there was 300 other ways we could have done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible to think about too, because when you do talk about selling your business, you don't think about all of those options. And how would you know outside of
right.
Did you hire a team to help you and consult through all of that stuff?
We did. We didn't know what we were doing. So we did hire a company out of Nashville, and they were fantastic. They really knew what they were doing and were great to work with. So, and I really highly recommend that, because when you have that experience behind you, and when you're getting bought, you're getting money. Most, 99% of the time, you're getting money out of the deal. Just pay the money that you need to get the right deal done and have it done correctly. Because if we wouldn't have had them, it would have been a worse deal than what we took on, because we didn't know what we were doing. We would have, your knowledge is only what you're bringing to the table. And if you don't have knowledge on that, you're getting taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah. Well, and then, so you're bored and you're writing books and you're sold your company and you got another company that you're building, but where was the point where you're okay, now I see this other need. Let's jump back into this. And did your husband join you on this too?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, did your husband join you on the new venture too?
Not on Burger Fit. I do that. That one was my thing. So what happened after we sold is people started referring us business or companies saying, hey, they need help on this. Will you consult with them? And so that's what BGBO is. So it stands for biggest goal, biggest obstacle, because that's literally what we were doing. We were coming in. What's your biggest goal? Great. We will help you with your biggest obstacle so you can get there. Because it was just referral based. And we just needed something to funnel money through. And one day, Micah and I looked at each other and we're like, well, I think we got to start taking this seriously. We've got 14 employees. Like,
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
we're growing. We've got payroll thing. Like, okay, I guess this is a thing. And when COVID happened, it really sunk in. And that's that moment that I looked at it and I'm like, I think we got to take this seriously. Because COVID, people had to go hybrid and had to go remote that were not doing that before. And so we really started growing through that time. And it was been really wonderful. And we worked with companies all over the world, like Norway, Estonia, everywhere around the world. Australia is one of the biggest, like, have the most clients in. And we kept seeing, so with BGBO, we saw, once we started really growing, we were like, okay, we do everything, because then it's Alane and Micah always having to consult with our knowledge. So we really started to hone in, what is our offering? What are we really passionate about? And we were helping clients put in processes and documentation, and we were looking at what was out there, and we just said, nobody wants to read black and white text documents. Mm-hmm. Sure, you can add a screenshot in here and drop in a video, but all of it at the end of the day is a text document. I'm sorry. 100%. And so that's how we built Arvo, and we call it visual documentation. We're the Canva for documentation so that it is visually appealing. It's super easy for the person creating. They just have to know how to type. And so we launched that last year, and it's been incredible.
So how have you determined how much time to spend on BGBO versus Arvo, and how is that determined, I guess, is the best question.
Yeah. And that is such a great question, because everybody thinks I do everything and I don't. So most of my time is spent with Arvo. So what I really enjoy, and which is why I like Burger Fit and my products there and my books, is it's a product. And that's the same thing with Arvo. Arvo is a software product, and it's there's so many use cases for it. So that's where my passion is. And my husband focuses more on the BGBO side. He really likes the automate, like we go in now and automate people's businesses and take processes they were doing manually, help them automate it. So has the knack for that. I know I need it, but I don't want to sit there in the woods trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's how we divide and conquer, and we're not spread so thin on everything.
Okay.
Very nice. So where does Goldman Sachs come into your story?
So, all right. I love that that I get to tell this story too. So Goldman Sachs, I had just exited my company. So it was the very beginning of 2019. I think it was like January or February. A lady I know in town sent me an email and said, hey, Alane, I just finished this Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business program. It was absolutely incredible. I referred you to it. And I'm like, sounds great. So I sent in my application. And I respect her immensely. So if she referred me and she got value, I'm like, I'm in. And Goldman Sachs was like, yeah, Alane, you don't qualify. You have only been in business for 2 months. I'm like, but I meet all the other stuff. I've got people working for me. I meet the amount of income you have to have. They're like, you really have to be in business 2 years. I'm like, okay, cool. And so I got denied the first time.
Wow.
And which I thought I was going to get in anyway, but what was amazing is 2 years later, they wrote back to me and said, Alane, we would love for you to reapply. You've hit the 2-year mark. If you're still interested, we'd love for you to apply and possibly interview. And so that's how I got to be in it, was the second time around. I made it through the process. And I wish I would have had that experience 5 years before that. And because I feel so alone most days. I do live near Nashville, but I live outside of Nashville, and I'm a tech company in a small town. I don't have a lot of relationships of people doing similar things. Mm-hmm. And so what I really got out of 10,000 small businesses is I have real friends running amazing companies. Mm-hmm. Now that Amy and I are going on a girls trip to Antelope Canyon to hike it in Arizona next month. Place. A wonderful friend. And I know I don't feel so alone anymore. Mm-hmm. Like I know I can text my friends and say, hey, can we jump on a call next week? And I don't need to say I'm having a bad day. Like, my gosh, we all have bad days, but just somebody else like, hey, what are you doing on this? And somebody to brainstorm with. And that is like the most valuable piece that I got out of 10KSB.
Yeah, our community here is amazing too. Like, and even just, did you go to the summit too?
I did. Did y'all go?
That's how we met. Even though we're in Dallas, we met through the summit. And she's like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I do podcasting. She's like, I've always wanted to start a podcast. And hence this was born.
That is amazing.
And you brought up how I built this. And I'm like, how I built this, I feel like they only interview companies that are, bazillion-dollar companies. I'm like, and Bloomberg just said, we're the backbone of America. Why aren't they talking to us? So I had to. Yeah, a glass of champagne, by the way.
Yeah, I love that y'all did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like the community too. But I'd be interested too, just in you're definitely a different perspective from a lot of the people in there, because you've got an exit now, and like you're starting another company, or you're in a couple other companies. Was there anything in the program where going in, your company was one way, going out, you shifted or changed anything?
It was, I'll say, interesting. I was really kind of hardcore, like, this is the curriculum, this is what I have to do. And I was getting really frustrated. And then one day I just said, I can do whatever I want. Like, this is just because the curriculum is like this, I can still do things my way. Mm-hmm. And I will say, like, that was super impactful for me. Is I think, and I'm very studious. I have 2 bachelor's degree and a master's degree. Like, I like school and I like following the rules, but in business, that is so much harder to do, right? Mm-hmm. There's not a rule book. And I felt like with 10KSB, there was this like rule book and I had to follow it. And then once I just said, I'm doing things my way. Like, I'm not going to create it in this. I'm creating it over here in Lucid Chart or whatever. And it became really funny because, I did the national program. Did y'all do the Dallas program?
Yeah, we did Dallas. Yeah.
Okay. So I did the national one. And so I'm sure it's very similar where you have guest speakers come in.
Yeah.
The last 6 weeks, so we had to like submit our homework or whatever. And then the speaker would like pick a couple of people to show off their work. Every week it was me. And it was just me being like, I wasn't even trying. I was just like, this is me. And that is what I've had to really learn about me. And that was valuable in that experience is I don't have to be what everybody else is doing. Like a lot of times I feel like I've got to be really formal, super professional. And I can be me and still come across as professional and maybe a little bit warmer because I can have my friend calls me an M&M, where a hard shell, but I'm really chocolatey and soft in the middle. And so, I've found like when I can stop trying so hard that I can just be me, that people actually warm up to me and want to talk to me. And they're not like, hi, Alane. And that's a very long story. And what 10KSB taught me was not what they intended, but that program with like the part where you're like constantly having to do things and think about your business and think about you and the business was my biggest takeaway is like, I can be me and the real me.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I want to talk about Burger Fit because I am so intrigued how you go from tech. And is this more of a passion project that took life, or how does that work?
Yeah, it was. And I was when I was retired and
the 3 books.
I was so stressed in retirement and doing Burger Fit. I'll tell you. So there have been things in my life that have taught me what I don't want to do. And I think that is so valuable. It's more valuable than what you learn on what you like to do. And I learned I didn't want to be an engineer when I did an internship. I'm like, this is what y'all do all day. This is boring.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and do this. And Burger Fit, although I love cooking and I love sneaking vegetables in burgers so people eat healthier, what happens when you've got a food company is you're not just getting to tell your story anymore. It comes down to food safety. If I'm going to Orlando and meeting with Disney Cruises, how am I going to transport food safely from Nashville to Orlando? Make sure A, it's been safely cooked. B, it stayed refrigerated or frozen that entire time on the boat, or not the boat, but the vehicle to get there. And then third, I've got to make sure it's still safe and good to eat in the food presentation with Disney Cruises. And it became so stressful that I was starting to break out in it's an autoimmune disease that I have that's triggered by stress that I learned called angioedema. And I was starting to get that at the end of selling my business, where my face flares up. Like I look like my friend calls me the Walking Dead, like swells up, then all my skin peels, and my hands, it looks like I'm a burn victim. It just like turns on fire. So that was starting to happen I finally figured out it was from stress. So that was happening as I was selling my business and going through that horrible time. Well, it started coming back when I was really hardcore doing Burger Fit, and I'm traveling all over the country doing these meetings with these amazing food distributors, these amazing companies. They want to carry my burgers. Doing that through COVID with a food business was so stressful. And my in-laws ended up having to come pick me up one morning. I was 2 hours away from Nashville. I was supposed to be on TV the next morning. I was going to be talking about Burger Fit on a news station, and I had a flare up, and I couldn't open my eyes. They were so swollen. And so I had to cancel my TV segment. My in-laws came and picked me up because they were free that day. They're retired. They had to come pick me up and drive me home. And eventually I was like, this is getting to be way too stressful for me. I don't need to live this way. And so I scaled back. I just realized if I'm not enjoying Burger Fit and having the burgers out in stores for people to buy, then I shouldn't be doing that. And I can focus on my products. I've got my books that I wrote, my cookbooks, and I have a lifestyle journal, and I've got a few other products. Like I can still enjoy Burger Fit with those things behind me without the parts that stress me out.
I love this so much because you hear, oh, if you have a passion, you never work a day in your life, right? It's like, oh yeah, if I just love this thing. And I've done that too, where there's things that I've really loved and I've explored it. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't. Like, I love this thing, but all the things that I have to do to make this happen doesn't make it worth it, right? And I feel that there's so much power into, yes, finding a thing that you follow, and you love, but there's also power to finding a thing that you're like, you know what? Tried it, didn't work out. I'm never going to have regrets around this because I did what I needed to do, but I also discovered it wasn't worth it. And I think more entrepreneurs need to learn to do that too, and not just because you're so long in or because whatever, you got to keep pounding away at it. Because to me, it's like you might as well just go get a job,
Exactly.
It's probably easier.
And when you turn your passions into your business, you stop being passionate about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy leatherworking. If you told me how to turn that into a business, I'd be like, oh my God, like that sounds so stressful. Like, can I just have a passion that I enjoy doing for me? That's all.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I love photography, but I always feel like if I'd made that a job, I wouldn't enjoy it. Right. And it goes on that thought we were just talking about earlier. It's like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And trying to process through all of that when someone's like, you could make so much money, or you're so talented, you're great at this. You're like, oh, I should do that.
Yeah.
For leatherworking, that's, for one project, that's how many times you touch the product. Right. For one thing.
I mean, I could never make enough money for how long it takes me to do stuff.
Yeah, it's like, this is $20,000 for like a little tiny thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially like in the maker world too, scalability. We were talking about that the other day. So what's next for you?
I mean, I'm really enjoying Arvo and building that, and seeing we're getting traction now. Like I got one of our customers called me and she didn't even say hello. I was like, hey, Catherine. She goes, I love Arvo, and just went on a 5-minute like love rant on how she's been using the platform and that it is just helping her tremendously with her business and her clients. And I'm like, we are doing something right. We are building a product that people are passionate enough to call and tell them how much they love it. And so I want to, we've been launched for a year now. We're getting amazing traction, getting so many good use cases. and I really love what tech can do for people. I mean, that's one of the things with what we built before. Some of our employees that worked for us at our previous company, they left the other company on their on their own terms. And if it's a good fit for where we are right now, we want them to come back. And we have stories of these people, like our waitresses at the restaurants we like, and we're like, hey, you want to work for a tech company? Come work for us. We'll train you. And we have one lady, she was on food stamps, had barely a high school degree, had our baby when she was 16. And she, by the time we left, was running our development team, making more money than she had in her entire life, could had a stable living. Like, that's what tech can do for people. Mm-hmm. And they can work remote. They can finally go and travel the world because they can work anywhere they can work from anywhere for us. And that's what I love about what we're building with Arvo, is that we're able to do that again. It's not just about us and what we're building. It's what we're able to give back to other people and build their stories in their lives.
Now, have you guys, I love this. Have you guys taken investments, or have you done this all? Has Arvo been on you guys?
So Arvo, we bootstrapped. We have not taken investment.
Wow.
And we were looking at doing it. And I'll tell you, and it wasn't even that we kept getting told no. We had people wanting to invest, but I just got burnt out.
Yeah.
It's becomes a full-time job just talking to investors and managing those relationships. And I told Micah, I'm like, I want to take a break. Like, I just want to run our company. Mm-hmm. And I like the investor, like at the end of the day, that's what I do like doing that, but not at the expense of, I have to make decisions on, am I going to work on marketing and selling our product, or am I going to be talking with investors all day? And so I just thought, this isn't the time right now. I don't want to do this. Like, let's just focus. And he's like, that sounds great.
So have you had any growing pains, like being, because tech costs a lot of money, and you better hope with what you're pouring money into that it works the way it needs to work and all of these things. Like, have you had issues where you could move a little faster, or where, because I'm not one where I believe investing is where it's at, or getting investors is where it's at either. But have you had struggles because of the bootstrapping side?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we still talk like maybe we should get investment, then we could move faster. I mean, and I'll tell you too, in our previous company, we essentially bootstrapped those. We took a pre-seed, or I guess a seed investment. We got an offer within a few months on the first platform that we built for the radio stations. We got an offer within a few months for a couple million. And we hired an investment banker to help us. And he said, you know what, you're only a couple of months in and you already got a $2 million offer. Let's build this up and sell it in a year for whatever, 10x that or whatever. Mm-hmm. But let me buy in. And so we did take, I guess a seed investment from him, and it was not a good relationship. And that really was my first inclination, is when you're in business, you're married to them. You are signing a contract. Yeah. You share money. They want to know where your money's going.
Yeah.
And so after a year of that, and it didn't work out well, we bought them out. And I think that's an important thing too, is that what we learned is that we're not stuck. Just because we made a bad decision doesn't mean we have to continue with it. So we determined, how could we buy them out? And we made that happen. And so so we had that seed investment and then reversed it, and we continued to bootstrap it. And man, there is so much pain associated with bootstrapping. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying we're not going to raise money with Arvo, because the pain that you go through bootstrapping is eventually catches up with you, because if you don't raise investment, there's somebody else that's going to catch up and they're going to do it better, because they've got millions of dollars pumped into them. They've got strategic relationships, at every window that they're looking out. And so eventually we will do that with Arvo. And so we have growing pains, and we constantly ask ourselves, what are we doing? There's no end to our development roadmap. We need to hire more. We need sales and marketing. And we're constantly juggling resources. So, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. Wow. I love that you're strategic about it though. And it's not all money is good money. And at least you're careful about that too.
Well, and I'm just impressed by we sold this company and now we're in a whole nother company and you're still having the pain points that all businesses have and you still have a smile on your face.
Yeah, you didn't get to bypass anything.
Right.
I mean, the days are hard, but I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, there's some days where I just say, I think I need to give up. Like I'm done. I hit so many obstacles or the same one over and over again. Mm-hmm. And then like, my husband and I are like, well, do we want to go work for somebody else? Not really. Mm-hmm. Like still kind of having fun, even though today sucked.
Yeah.
Or this week sucked or this month sucked.
Yeah. All right. You want to do rapid fire?
Yes.
All right. So rapid fire.
What's your favorite beverage?
Kombucha.
Any particular company?
There's one it's local here. It's called Short Mountain Cultures. And they brew at a small little town from like a guru taught them. He like lives in Tennessee. So that's my favorite.
I love that.
To find it.
Best advice you've ever been given?
Oh gosh. Watch how much alcohol you drink.
That bites you.
That's a fair one.
Definitely bites you.
If you could have dinner with anyone.
My dad. He's still alive, but he has dementia. So my days are shorter and shorter. So I do a lot of things with him. So I can get as much good times as I can and good memories.
Love that.
That's sweet.
Your morning routine.
Wake up. I have 3 dogs that are wild, crazy animals. Wake up, let them out. I make myself tea, do a little stretching and yoga. Then the whole house wakes up. I've got my husband and my 7-year-old son, and we drink coffee, talk about our agenda for the day, and hit the ground running.
Love that. What are you reading right now?
Okay, Running with Sherman by Christopher McDougall. It is one of the most bizarre stories that I've read, and just like wants me to get off the couch and move.
Oh, I need to write this. I've never heard of this book. Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's awesome.
It's a story about a donkey.
Oh, okay. I love animals, so I'm sold.
Top bucket list item.
Oh my God. I don't know. I don't have anything necessarily on a bucket list, but I just don't want to stop exploring. I'm a spontaneous, let's go. Like my bag is always packed. And so my bucket list item is just to keep living life.
That's great words of wisdom right there. What's your guilty pleasure?
I don't know. I mean, of course I love shopping and traveling, but I really love boxing. Like I'm like trying to figure out like, okay, can I make it at 6 o'clock tonight and still have dinner made and like do all the things? And because it's so fun and I get to punch something for an hour.
Helps make those bad weeks not so bad then at least.
Right?
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. Alane, you are amazing. This is why I love Goldman Sachs so much, to be able to meet incredible women like you. If somebody wanted to find out more or connect, is there, like, we can throw all the websites up, like with Arvo and, BGBO specifically, if I can talk today, but anywhere you want to send them?
Come find me on LinkedIn. Connect with me. I'll say, add a note, do the add note and say, hey, Alane, like heard your podcast. Because I get a random requests all the time. So don't be spammy. Say hi. But yeah, find me on a LinkedIn, Alane Boyd. I'm very active on there.
Yeah, you are. And we'll have that on our notes page too. So Alane, thank you so much for doing this today. It was awesome getting to know you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right.